I think music's come to me at strangest of times, the strangest of places, which is why so many times, I always keep my phone in proximity, and every time a tune comes in my head, I immediately take it out and I start singing to my phone very strangely, which has also made a lot of people concerned around me. My name is Tushar Lall. I'm a composer and a producer. I am also heavily into arrangement, and right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to recontextualize Indian classical instruments so that they become more appealing to people who are my age, and I'm trying to bridge the gap so that they can understand this school of thought better. And I think Indian classical music, for a lot of people who are in their early 20s, it's painted in a very boring light, and they think it's very regimental and strict. But I kind of want to break down those barriers by showing them that if a sitar is capable of playing a Rag Malhar, it's also capable of playing something like Star Wars. As far as I remember, music's always been around since I was a kid. So I don't really, I think I can't trace it so far back where I can tell you that, this is when I started music. And it wasn't really a choice, it's kind of the only way that I saw. I wasn't making any choices. It was just like a thing which was always there around me. And I started playing a toy keyboard, I think, when I was 3 or 4, and then my keyboard started getting bigger, and then I started learning software, I started learning production, then slowly I got into composition. I think I got into composition when I was 14 or 15, and then that really started becoming a surreal experience for me, because it's a very symbiotic process where you give something to your instrument and the instrument gives something back to you, and you kind of have a conversation.
So your YouTube videos, they have like millions of views from people like all over the world, but your covers have also been noticed like internationally by some pretty influential people. So I wanted to ask you, like, how did you start the Indian Jam project, and what went into making it what it is today?
My mother actually, she used to listen to a lot of tracks when I was a kid. I think subconsciously every day I was getting fed a lot of music which I didn't understand, but which I definitely enjoyed. And then as I grew up, I grew up playing a lot of Western classical pieces, and Western like pop songs and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the mix had already happened in my head, but I think after I finished my education in New York, and then when I came back, I immediately thought that I want to represent Indian classical instruments, because I know for a fact that they go very deep, and they really evoke a lot of emotions. But how can I do that? And how can I do that in a way where it becomes very appealing to the people who are my age? So I thought that maybe we can take background scores instead of the really famous pop songs, and that's why we started with Game of Thrones and Sherlock and Harry Potter and stuff like that, Star Wars. When it comes to working with both the Western style of music making and Indian classical music, see, Indian classical music is very centric in nature, so you more or less you're revolving around one route, and it's all about diving deep. So Indian classical music is more like meditating in a cave, and you have locked yourself in the cave by choice. Whereas Western classical music, for me, how I see it is, I see it in like colors, and a lot of horizontal waves going everywhere and flying everywhere. I think when both of them come together, you give this taming quality to these waves which are flying off everywhere by making them centric in nature. Which is which is why the confluence is something which becomes surreal, and you get to experience it while you're in the recording studio, or when you're working with Indian classical instruments.
And so you went to New York. Can you walk us through your time in the United States, like what you did here, and all of that stuff in kind of story form?
Yeah, so I went to New York when I was 17. So yeah, and obviously, I was still a kid, and I was still trying to figure life, and then I was just thrown into like one of the biggest, most booming cities of the world. So I had to naturally, and I mean, I think 17 is still, like a very impressionable, formative year of your life. So I was still gathering a lot of things, whatever was happening around me. So I joined this college called Dubspot. I think it's on 14th and 10th. And I had a really good time there because of the community that was there in the college. So the college was, sort of this underground college where they teach you music production, and the community of people and teachers around, they were really good. And this was the first time where I was introduced to a setup where I'm not facing any sort of condescension as such. I mean, I'll tell you why I'm saying that, because I mean, my parents, both of them, they worked in the government, so we have lived in towns and cities in North India all my life. And then Bombay is like the New York of India. So naturally, like once I moved to Bombay, I came from like a small town or a small city. Then yeah, Bombay was a little intimidating because for the first time I found out that English, as it is not a language but also a measure of superiority. So, and my first language isn't English. My first language is Hindi, and that's how we talk in our homes as well. So I was kind of struggling with that entire equation, and I was getting like condescended from here and there. But I think New York specifically, I think the way it's grown as a city, it's very, I mean, it's very conducive if you want to learn as an individual, and if you're keen. And it's already seen like like a hub of a lot of cultures coming together, and that's the vibe of New York. So in Bombay, while I was dealing with this condescension and everything, I was suddenly thrown into the Big Apple, and there it was like a completely different setup. And I met people who were like super welcoming, and they completely understood that English is not my first language, and they wouldn't judge me on it. And so I think that really switched a lot of things within my head, and I became a different person when I came out of the city, like when I left New York, and I was much more confident, much more open to interactions.
So going off of that, would you ever come back to United States? Why or why not?
I would definitely come back to United States for for the community of musicians there. I mean, I think they're hardcore professionals, extremely talented. Very hardworking. They've literally, some of them have literally defined the standards of music industry and the entertainment industry in the world. But there are also reasons why I might right now, at least for 2020, like I would think twice, because of some of the policies that are going down against international students. I just read about one, and I mean, it's very shocking. That I think that if you're not allowed to, if all your courses are shifting online, then they were asking international students to leave, and that's just bizarre for me. I mean, I don't think any country should treat their international students like that. I mean, that's a little too weird for me. And also, just the general vibe of things right now with I'm referring to the guy who's heading it all. I wouldn't want to be around states right now. I don't feel it's a conducive environment for me as someone as an outsider who wants to learn. So yeah, not right now, but before Trump and after Trump, definitely. But while he's there, I would kind of stay away because I'm scared.
I wanted to ask you if you ever feel like you're sometimes conflated with your nationality or your culture from a Western lens. And if so, like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think India is often viewed as the land of snake charmers, and and I think Slumdog Millionaire, like, it was a great film, but it just made it worse because there's so much happening in India. And yeah, I think a part of what I do is also trying to change that image. I remember we were doing a concert with these people. I can't take their names, but we were collaborating with them for a concert in Delhi, and we were obviously there with our sitars and tablas and everything. and this one guy, he was kind of the band master, like the band arranger of the band from States, and he kept saying that, like, why can't we have like a trill of sitar here, like it'll make it sound more exotic. And exotic is the word, damn man. Yeah, it's something that gets thrown around a lot. Or why can't we have the tabla there, because it just adds that diversity angles. And then at the end of our entire session, I ended up telling him that it's music. This is not I mean, you don't need to be so weirdly empathetic about things. And I understand, because see, the second you're saying that bringing a sitar and a tabla in makes it very exotic, that immediately makes me feel that my instruments are alienable and my culture is alienable. And so I think we should start with the process right now, where we kind of there are lenses, like we were also talking about it, like how you would see this culture from this lens. So I think it's time to like take that box of lenses and throw it out of the window, and just be with each other as human beings and as individuals, work in that capacity, have conversations in that capacity, ideate things like that, talk to each other like that, be empathetic, love people around you the same way. And by 2020, everyone, this is like a famous meme quote, whatever, by 2020 we'll have flying cars, and now we have I don't know, a pandemic. But it is a bad time, but it's also a very good time to self-reflect, where we can think that we really need to come together for each other. So hating and dividing people on the lines of cultures or countries or races, it's not really going to help anymore. And I'm just waiting for the next generation to find these things stupid, because that really helps put the entire movement. The entire movement happens in a snap, where someone just realizes that I know caste and culture, not cultures essentially, like caste and racism, all of it exists, but it's so stupid, so why are we doing it? And then suddenly they're not doing it. Think in that direction. It would really help us as people, as human beings.
Yeah, but like you said, I think it's happening. Like even here in the United States, like I see it happening in certain circles and certain groups, and as people are questioning more and more about like minority groups and minority rights, like I think it's shifting a little bit. What was okay 10 years ago to say, is probably not okay to say anymore. So
exactly. So I don't think now you can openly go and call some Indian guy, oh my god, you're so exotic. I think that would have a lot of backlash, which is for good, like rightfully so. So I'm happy that we've reached that state.
So a lot of the work that you do, it involves like the social equity component too. So can you speak a little bit about the social work that you've done and why you do it?
Yeah, I think I think giving back to a society is something that you'll only understand once you've done it, because it is only then you'll know how good it feels. There is also a selfish motive to it, because it really feels very, very good when you give back to the society. So I think the first time I did it, I raised like around 4 to 5 lakhs for these underprivileged kids of this slum in Bombay called Asalfa. And I started a scholarship out of that money, where we picked like the top 7-8 students who are doing really good in the schools in that society, and we waive off their school fee for the year. Yeah, it is only when I met those kids, when I met their parents, when I sat with them, ate with them, I spoke to them, I told them that we're gonna do this for you. Some of them like ended up crying, which we like all of us also got really overwhelmed. So when you go through all these things, and when when I came out of that house, and I just felt that man, like today I've done something which I would be really proud of. And I've never felt like that with my music. With music I can find 100 reasons to hate myself. With social work I can't find a single one, because when I've given back to the society and when I've worked in that direction, I really feel that, oh man, like this is something that I would look back at, and I feel proud.
Thank you.
नहीं सर क्यों मैं बुढ़ा हो गया सर किसको बोला?
Thank you.
That was Tushar Lall on Model Minority, Uniquely American. You can find all his work on YouTube under the name Indian Jam Project, and you can follow him on Insta under his name, Tushar Lall, for all his unique reels and other work. All the music used in this episode is Tushar's original work, including the cover you're listening to right now. So if you liked what you hear, you're gonna love the rest of his music and the beautiful videos that go along with them. Seriously, a huge thank you to the artist, the Kalakar himself, Tushar, for agreeing to an interview halfway across the world in a totally different time zone. Be sure to follow Model Minority Uniquely American on Facebook and Insta and wherever you get your podcasts. And we're actually on JioSaavn in India now too. Woo! So if you're in India, please give us a follow there. And if you really like this interview and want to hear more, I'm releasing an unpublished, longer version of this tape and others exclusively for my patrons. I know this was a highly produced episode, but my other tapes are more for behind the scenes and extended versions of conversations. So if you're interested, head over to Patreon, throw some pennies in the hat, and enjoy some longer interviews. As always, thank you, shukriya for listening. I'm Nidhi Shastri, and this is Model Minority Uniquely American.